This is the Committee of the Whole for the Metropolitan Council, Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. I'll call the meeting to order. First, I just want to start by thanking everybody for making the journey here. We have a quorum, which is delightful, and I appreciate staff and council members. This is an important meeting. We have a number of business items, but it may be the last meeting of the year, so it's important that we are here to take these votes. So taking a look at the agenda, unless anyone is suggesting a change to the agenda, I will assume it is okay and approved, which takes us to the minutes from our meeting on November 16th, Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion's carried. So as I mentioned, we have 3 business items today. And pursuant to the bylaws, even though this is a committee of the whole, we have the ability to make time-critical business items on these agendas. And and we're able to do that with these formal actions when timing and timely action is required, which it is in these cases. So moving to the first item from the Environment Committee, item 2022-318, Councilmember Lindstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. This was originally listed as a joint item. It is not. It is just coming from the Environment Committee, and this is contract 22G002. This money coming to us from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. This is a joint powers agreement for our watershed outlet monitoring program. This is a program that's been in operation since 1998. We monitor really critical pollutants like nitrates, phosphorus, chloride, and other critical things. And this is a 2-year agreement with the Environmental Services Division to continue monitoring 5 tributary streams and river segments as part of our watershed outlet monitoring program. It's $250,000 from MPCA. This is clean water funds that is passed through to us from the MPCA. And so therefore, Mr. Chair and members of the council, I move that the Met Council, Committee of the Whole, authorize its regional administrator to negotiate and execute contract 22G002 with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to enter into this new joint powers agreement.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Stern. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carried. Next, we have item 2022-337JT, the 2022 budget amendment for the Metro Green Line extension. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. Business item number 2022-337JT is for the authorization to amend the 2022 unified budget. The council and Hennepin County have been working collaboratively through most of 2022 to find a solution to the unexpected cost and schedule changes for the Metro Green Line extension project. Business item 2022-337JT reviewed and approved by the Transportation Committee and the Management Committee on December 12th and 14th respectively, approved the use of $111 million of the council's federal funds to be used for this project, pending the subsequent approval by FTA in 2023. With approval of this amendment, these funds will go into the project's capital improvement program, or our CIP. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorizes the 2022 unified budget as amended, as indicated and in accordance with the tables in business item 2022-337, again, JT.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And at this point, I want to recognize Councilmember Barb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After the approval by the Management and Transportation Committees, Hennepin County approved $100 million in local funds for this project on December 15th. The council therefore needs to account for a total of $211 million in additional funds for the project, which will allow it to continue into 2024. You've all been provided with a copy of a business item entitled Business Item 2022-337, Joint 337 Joint Substitute, which it incorporates the council's funding for the project CIP and moves the county funding into the project's authorized capital program or ACP. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move to amend business item 2022-337JT by substituting it in its entirety with business item 2022-337JT substitute to properly account for all the budget changes that need to be addressed.
Okay, we have a motion for a substitute amendment. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Barb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment will allow the council to address all of the changes to its 2022 unified budget at once and appropriately account for the county's contributions, which went through the Transportation Management Committee, or council's contributions, which went through the Transportation Management Committees, and the county's additional contribution, which did not. Those changes are contained in the attached 2022 through 2027 Table 9, depicting the Transportation Capital Program. Also attached is the 2023 through 2028 Table 9, reflecting the impact of this amendment on the Transportation Capital Program the council adopted last Wednesday, December 14th.
And thank you, Councilmember Barber. So this is an amendment, and we're having a series of actions now, all related to really this funding of the gap of Southwest Light Rail, both with the funds that we have identified, the federal funds, and acknowledging those that have been voted on by Hennepin County. So I'll open up for discussion, and we are discussing specifically the amendment to the business item, but feel free to make any other comments on the whole package if you'd like.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could just make a couple of
Please.
comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really want to, again, as I did at the Management Committee meeting, thank everybody who's come together to try to find a solution for this. It's an interim solution. We know that a year from now, we'll hopefully have more solution as we try to figure out the remainder of the funding that is needed to continue to move the Southwest LRT Green Line Extension project forward. I want to thank our county partners in this. I know for all of us, this has not been easy. We have learned a lot on this project, and I know we'll carry those learnings forward. And so, you know, to get to where we are today, I think is an important milestone as we continue to try to figure out how to fund this important project. I would also say that I understand, you know, the struggle around, you know, taking funds and moving them into this slot, as far as, you know, what it eventually means for overall funding for transit and transportation, both at the county and Met Council. But I think, as Commissioner Lundy stated at their Hennepin County Commissioner meeting on the 15th, and we've stated before too, that although some people out in the community have said, well, don't fund it anymore or abandon it, the options then would go in a whole another direction. And from my understanding and from what I've learned here in my role is that it's not that simple. We would have to return the entire corridor into its before state, which would be extremely expensive, and we would be losing a key piece of infrastructure that is part of an entire regional transportation and transit system, and something that the community, from its early beginnings with our local communities, including Hennepin County and the cities along the line, have all supported in earnest. So, you know, and with that said, I read today back the history of how this line was chosen and the rationale by the commissioners at the time at Hennepin County, and it was really about the priorities that we have as a region, and it was about making sure that there were the greatest economic impacts throughout this corridor that would benefit the region and beyond. And it was about saving money operationally, and all of that was laid forward as they made their final decision. Included in that analysis, though, was to accommodate the freight rail needs. And I don't know if at that time they really understood what that meant, or if we understood what that meant, but we now know. There's a tunnel, and there's a sea cant wall, and these are engineering feats that, 10, 15 years ago, as the project was in its early days, maybe people didn't realize, and that is understandable. So I would say this is an engineering feat. I would say that the council is working very hard and diligently as we continue to move forward to be as conservative as we can on expenses. We earlier this year put forward $50 million, renegotiated the contract to keep the project moving forward. I know I've said this before, I'll just repeat. If you're a fan of light rail, this is not a great day, because we've hit this stumbling block, and it's requiring joint work to figure out how to fund this project going forward, which we're doing today. If you don't like the project, it's not a great day, but if you like the project, it's not a great day. Because again, these are hard decisions to be made, but the path is to move forward. I would say for me, I think it's important, and we've already taken steps to put our own policies in place, where as we are working with our local partners, we have the opportunity at the Met Council to assess our risk along the way. And I think that that is coming out of a project such as this, which I think will serve us very well going forward in the future. I think we can take this learning forward and our new policies forward, and hopefully craft with our partners solutions not only for Southwest, but funding solutions as we move forward to fund equitably our entire region as far as transportation and transit goes. I will echo what those at the county said, and those of us here, we know that in order to have sustainable, reliable funding for a robust transportation and transit system, how we fund it really needs to be reevaluated, because every unit of government has their limits, and every unit of government is trying to do, I think, more with less, and we just need to make sure that all of the funding partners are at the table and putting our best foot forward, because we don't want to run into funding cliffs and have fits and starts. We want to be able to look at all these projects that are coming our way, evaluate them again for the whole of the region, look at those risks, but also have that reliable funding. And at the same time, the Met Council, once we take on the project and we own and operate it, we have to make sure that we can operate it sufficiently with drivers and operators, make sure that our safety efforts are put forward and we continue to do that, and make sure that there's adequate staffing as these lines continue to come on. So in the past, we've done a great job on our projects. They've come on time and under budget, but this is a new world coming out of COVID and a new environment with workforce, and we're having to reevaluate how we partner with our local communities. But I want to thank all of our local communities, because I know this is not always easy work, but it's important work. So I felt it necessary to say that, because I, for one, have struggled a bit with how I would vote tonight. I know how I need to vote, and I will be supporting this. But I know that it's very critical in that next year that we have a really strong working framework with Hennepin County and potentially the state and feds, so that we can get this figured out, continue to be transparent in how we're doing so, and then take a framework that everybody can have some input on to ensure that going forward we have reliable, sustainable funding for not only the capital part of the project where we build it, because that, quite frankly, I've learned in 20-some years of government is the easy part. But owning and operating an asset like this, any big asset, requires the plan to ensure that for our customers and for everybody throughout the region, it's done appropriately and sufficiently and adequately funded to the standards that people expect. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will be voting in favor of this, but wanted to give my rationale to not only my constituents, but my thanks again to everybody who's really had to push up their sleeves and probably wrestle with this a bit. And that includes, I just want to do a shout out to Commissioner Kevin Anderson. We share constituents for his county district, and he shared with me his rationale for his vote. And we had a nice conversation today, and we're on the same page as far as what our goals are for the region. But just wanted to put that out there. So thank you for your time and letting me explain my vote tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. First of all, I want to take a moment to clear up some misinformation that has been circulating related to today's approval of the Green Line Extension Partial Funding Agreement. I want to be very clear that the funding is not used for operations, maintaining the Metro Transit Police Department, or safety issues which go beyond transit. It was never part of the plan for this. What it does is it allows us to keep the construction of the project on track through 2020 or into 2024. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our project staff that have been working so hard on this project. Given the challenging circumstances, the team has been outstanding. They address issues head on, are very responsive to our community partners. I truly believe, and I do mean this from the bottom, we have some of the best minds working on this project, and I want to make sure that we hold them up whenever we can possible. We also need to remember that this is all a very rigorous and transparent process. When we encounter issues, we have our project partners at the table for all of the major decisions. We are not doing this alone. This is truly a partnership as we move this project forward. I would say if there's questions or concerns about work of the Met Council, we're also not afraid to look at ways to improve. The first OLA report acknowledges the challenges that we face and that we are looking for resolutions. And if you look at the recent transit waste policy that we adopted, that is one of those types of actions. We looked at ourselves and knew we could do something better. Also, right now, we're awaiting a peer review from MnDOT, which we anticipate will be coming very shortly, and I'm fully confident will be supportive of actions that we've taken throughout this project. Lastly, this is a really big day, and we are definitely doing the right thing. It's a hard thing to do, but what today's agreement brings is our ability to create a world-class transit system that will provide better regional connection and economic development for generations to come. I would say it takes courage and commitment to do what's right for the people of the region, and we welcome everyone to join in this process, and I hope that many of you join us with a yes vote today.
Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate everything that's been said before by my two colleagues. Our staff has been working very diligently on this, and several of the council members have been working very diligently on this in terms of finding a solution. I understand that we have to finish this project because it would cost way, way more to go put it all back and pay back the feds and all of that. I am going to vote no today, however, because I've been here through this whole process, and I realize that the Hennepin County Board members that are there now are not the ones that were there at the beginning of the project. But the ones at the beginning of the project said they wanted to go forward with this without any partners besides the federal government. And that means the risk is theirs, essentially, because they chose to go forward with a certain alignment, and every step of the way we said, is this what you want to do? And they'd say yes, and we did it. Now everybody's changed over, and it's still their project. You know, you don't get to just disavow what was done by your predecessors. And I really believe that they should be taking a bigger role in filling this gap. So far, we've had 2 adjustments, and both times the council has come up with more money than Hennepin County has. And to me, that feels like they aren't fully invested in their own project. So I know it has to happen, but I'm going to vote no today just because I want to see more commitment from Hennepin County that they actually want to finish this project.
Thank you. Somali.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Agree with the statements that have been made and important, I think, observations about the project. I know, we all know that this has been, the process started however many, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, then it's 30, then it's 20, then it really starts kicking into high gear with planning and so forth. And it's virtually impossible to find every challenge or anticipate every challenge that's going to come up once you put that shovel in the ground and start to build. It can't be done. I think it's really important to look at a few things. The amount of development that's already happened or that has been permitted to happen along the line. I think we're pushing $2 billion with B dollars. It's incredible. Could be argued this might happen without. I doubt it. I know, in my own city of Hopkins, what the development that's happened there that would is just unbelievable and really is transformative to the city, but not, the whole project is not transformative just to the cities on the line, and not just to the region, but to the entire state. And however, we got a great update how many counties someone is collecting a paycheck just during the construction. I think 67 counties have someone receiving a paycheck. People come from greater Minnesota into our wonderful metropolitan area, and they can park and hop on and go downtown. They don't have the hassles of looking for parking or paying for parking or whatever, and will be able to take advantage of it. But the real core, I know when I was Mayor of Hopkins, I got a call every single solitary week from employers saying we are short-staffed, we are desperate. This was pre-COVID. And so to be able to open up a wider field, both for individuals who are looking for employment, who can cast their net out farther, looking for positions that may work for them, and for the employers who are looking for additional staffers, especially our buses would stop at 10 or 10:30, so those who wanted to run a third shift couldn't, because if they had individuals who were dependent on public transportation, there wasn't public transportation available to get them to or from the job. So I'm hoping that will help to relieve some of the stress. I think also it's important to remember that, again, this is part of the system. It's not a standalone rail project. It's part of a robust system that will serve the entire state. And if we look at the big infrastructure projects, especially around rail and so forth, that are going on in our peer cities around the country, this is not a surprise. The cost, the additional cost, the additional time, and by comparison, on a per mile basis, this project is actually less expensive than a number of the peer cities that are doing these projects as well. Could things have been done differently? I think it is pointless to look back, except to learn. And I think that's really important, and I think we've learned lots of things going forward. But again, when you consider, I think we've all toured and seen this, as many in the public have, but when you look at what we're trying to construct, threading this most thin needle in a thriving metropolitan area where we have businesses and residents and lakes and tunnels and bike trails and everything that we have to consider to build this, it's an extraordinary undertaking. And the project office, I think, has done just a phenomenal job in the work that they have done. And our staff has done a phenomenal job in being at the table with our partners, our federal partners, our county partners, and everyone who will have to continue to come together and work together. This buys us time to 2024, which is critical. We have to keep this project moving forward. And I applaud and look forward to a true partnership going forward on finding the rest of the funds to fill that gap, because we do have to finish this. And when it's all done, I think most people will be going, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. Yes, it's later. Yes, it's more expensive than we had hoped, but this is going to be fabulous. And so I will, with enthusiasm, be voting yes on this. And I do thank our Hennepin County partners, and I certainly thank our staff, and I know how painful this has been and how time-consuming it has been. But here we are, and this is a wonderful note to close out 2022 on, in getting this funding in place that will carry us into 2024 and negotiations next year for further funding with all of our partners. So my thanks and gratitude also for the staff and for everybody who has been involved in this. It's been really challenging work, and here we are, and it's a great day. In spite of the challenges that it continues to offer, this is a great accomplishment.
Thank you. Well said. Any other comment? Councilmember Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I want to echo what Molly just said. Last month, some of us were in Miami for the Revolution. It was my first time. And I was really inspired because Miami is such a great city. And it blew my mind to learn that our colleagues there were telling us that Miami 30, 40 years ago was a backwater retirement quiet town. And in 30 years, it's blown up to be what it is. And part of the reason is because of transit and the way that the city and other governments have come together to make Miami more people friendly and transit friendly. And if we build it, they will come. And it's a long-term investment. When Eisenhower passed the freeway bill, he modeled it after Germany's Autobahn, because he knew that was how you could defend a nation if you needed to. You need to move military resources across the country. But it was also important for civilian transportation for goods and services. And military historians argue that the Civil War was partly won on railroad tracks. That's what the Union Army used to go into the South, and then to also to communications lines and transportation lines once they controlled the territory. And so transportation, the way we build transportation routes, public transit, has always been critical to our infrastructure, whether it's for civilian use or national security or any other use. And it's our job to make sure that people have that access, and that we are ready, and that's for our customers and constituents. And it's long-term investment. Thank you.
Think about what we've accomplished in this past year. It's quite remarkable. And I'll just echo a couple of the thoughts that you've all just said. But, we identified what this gap was, but our staff on the project team negotiated some really key agreements to keep this project on course. And I can't imagine what it would be like had we not had the diligence of the staff and the creativity to put these agreements in place. And now we're taking a hard but important vote to do a major funding toward filling that gap. And I think a couple of people mentioned it, but I have to say great appreciation of our partners. I have heard appreciation from our project team from every Hennepin County Commissioner and their staff. So be known how much the creativity and the partnership at the level of managing this project is understood by all of our partners, including the federal government. When I had the head staff person from the FTA say, you are not alone, but you are handling this compared to other peers extremely diligently. So I think we have a lot to be proud of today. As hard a vote as it is, we're doing the right thing, and our eyes are wide open. So that,
Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
If I just may make one more comment too. In speaking with Commissioner Anderson today, he has not taken a tour of the line, and I offered that to him or any other commissioners. I want to thank Council Members Barber and Cummings and others for helping set up a tour for me this past summer. I think Council Member Vento was along too, and it was a nice warm summer day when we took it. But even seeing the project from the highway or going by it isn't the same as getting out there and taking a look at the various aspects of how complicated this project is. And especially when you get to the tunnel and you see that, again, there are actually divers had to be on site, and now they're waterproofing it and learning about a sea cant wall and all the things, right? So it just helped me to really understand the complexity of this important project, and that there are people diligently working who are experts on this that have only the best interests of the public and tax dollars and our goals. So I wanted to put that out there, that if county commissioners haven't been on a tour of the line, maybe when it gets a little warmer, they're welcome to come, and maybe they have, I don't know, but I just want to put that out there. And I want to echo what Councilmember Barber said. Met Council is being very transparent, as we always are, and if there's questions about building, operations, staffing, safety, we're here to answer all of that. Tonight we're talking about the capital funding, but we want our partners to understand how hard we are working to solve problems and create opportunities for the people throughout this region. So if there are questions, or commissioners or others feel like they don't have full information, please contact me or anybody on this council, because we are happy to dig deep with everybody and walk through that whatever question it may be, and commit our partnership back to especially Hennepin County in this project. And I will just say, for me, as again, we go into this next year to continue to find solutions to get past probably the final funding hurdle for this capital piece of the project, that framework that we're putting together and what we've started with is really important, so that we aren't, a year from now or whenever it might come forward. I'm sure the talks will start much sooner, but it's important to hold that framework together. So keeping lines of communication open and trying to be problem solvers in this, so that, again, we can not only move forward with Southwest, but take all of this learning and information and, I think, through a renewed lens, look at the other projects that are coming our way. We want all of our projects to be successful. We have a lot more data now as we're coming through COVID too on ridership and things like that. Everybody knows that. So I just want to put forward for my part, and I'm sure all of you, that we want to be open, transparent partners and establish a really strong working relationship to get us through this. And then certainly with all of our county partners to find that sustainable funding and be partners in good stead as we move forward with other projects throughout the region.
Great, thank you, Councilmember. All right, just to review where we are, there's been a motion by Councilmember Barber to amend the business item by substituting it in its entirety with business item 2022-337. So, any more discussion on that?
And Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
may, just a Robert's Rules question. So once we substitute it into the main motion,
We
it
will have a
becomes the
vote.
main motion and then we'll vote again?
We're gonna have a vote on the main motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Correct.
Chair.
All right, so this is on the amendment.
Mr. Chair, just to pipe up, we're substituting it with 2022-337 JT substitute.
Oh, right,
And
thank
for
you.
the listening audience, we attached that to the agenda, so it's on the agenda. It was available in paper for anyone that's here as well, just for full transparency so they can understand.
This is business item 2022-337 JT substitute,
Yes, to be clear,
for
sorry.
those watching at home. Okay. Any questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, that motion carried, which brings us to the main business item, which has been amended, and I believe we've already had a motion and a second. It has been amended for this particular motion, and you can correct me, we will have a roll call vote.
All right, Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Pacheco.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musse. Sterner.
Aye.
Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Nay.
Zarin.
Aye.
Cherizelli.
Aye, that motion carried. Thank you all. Which brings us to a final item, 2022-338, Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2022-338 is for the 9th Amendment to the Hennepin County and Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority Capital Grant Agreement. In January 2022, the council identified unexpected cost and schedule challenges for the Metro Green Line Extension project, which will require additional funding and a revised opening date. The council and Hennepin County have been working together to identify additional funding to complete the project. The amendment represents a partial funding solution that will be considered by the respective governing bodies. This amendment will add additional funds and extend the grant term to June 30th, 2023. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute the 9th Amendment to the Capital Grant Agreement with Hennepin County and Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority to add $100 million, bringing the total grant amount to $978,080,704 and extend the grant term to June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carried. And that, I believe, are the business items for today. And I don't think there's any other information items. I'm looking around, no. Let me just add, Councilmember Petrie.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I just want to do a shout out to Councilmember Barber and Councilmember Cummings. Councilmember Cummings did a great job of filling in for you. And the two of them worked diligently in their absence. But, you know, just extraordinary. But I also want to do a shout out to all the staff at Med Transit, the operators, the maintenance, the customer service, the management. I want to do a shout out to our regional administration for this work, but especially I want to do it today. As I was driving in, I was thinking about how nice it would be to get on a bus, take the bus to my meeting, and then take the bus home.
Wendy did.
Wendy did.
Yeah.
Lucky Wendy, I'm moving to late, oh no, that won't work. Anyway, but on a night like tonight, I think it's really pretty timely that we're having this conversation. Because what we're experiencing out there is why adequate transit is so important. In 2004, I spent 6 weeks in Cambridge, Massachusetts. January and February, I didn't pick the right season, but I did not drive a car or ride in a car except for a couple of occasions for 6 weeks. And the hardest part about returning to Minnesota was getting back in my car. I so loved the T in Boston. It was a lifeline. So I'm really proud to be a part of this group, but I am also just really, really grateful to all of the folks in transit who put up with a whole lot, including Minnesota Seasons and Minnesotans, and can't thank them enough, and I'm watching the heads and the smiles, I think everybody agrees, so thank you, Mr. Chair.
I agree. And the great thing about the T is that the pass card is called the Charlie card.
Oh!
Something special. While you grabbed some of the comments I was gonna say, which was no, but deep thanks to everybody, especially Councilmember Barber and Councilmember Cummings for the past 6 weeks. Really appreciate all the work and all the committee work, including the Management Committee, Transportation Committee, clearly, in dealing with many of the issues that were coming to a head to get us to where we are today. So, now, having said that, this is probably the last meeting of the year, but it's not the last meeting for all of us, because Met Council doesn't fizzle away. Our terms continue. Well, at least yours do, I'm not sure about mine, but we're moving forward into the year, so we'll have an opportunity. I was gonna suggest tonight, but it's a little blustery, so we'll have an opportunity to celebrate all that we've done this incredible first term at a meeting coming up in the first quarter. But in the meantime, have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you all for making the trip tonight and for everything that you do. Really, and including the staff, Mary and everyone here. It is a remarkable team, and you can tell the great affection we all have for it. So be well, and this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.